A reinforced steel rail, warped in the Siberian mud into a sinusoidal curve that no engineer in the world can explain. A train that does not run on the ground, but hangs suspended in the air, lifted clear of the earth by the roots of ancient trees. A track laid on ice so transparent you can see the 1,600-meter abyss right beneath your feet. This is not a movie effect. Not a video game. Not AI generated. These things are real. They exist. Right now. And there is only one question. How can this be real? The journey ahead will not give you answers. Because science does not have the answers yet. But it will take you to where the questions begin. Where everything we believe to be eternal is collapsing. And where we realize one thing, we understand less than we think. Number 10, Canfranc International Station and the Pyrenees Underground Tunnels. An Art Deco palace in the middle of a white snow valley in the Pyrenees. Bronze lampposts. Shattered glass ceilings. Rotting wooden benches. This is the Palace of Versailles, but without a single soul. Only snow covering the rotting wooden benches. That is Canfranc today. And the strangest thing? Beneath the floor of this station, hundreds of meters deep, scientists are hunting for something called dark matter. The substance that makes up 85% of the universe. And they had to come all the way down here to avoid us. Because humans create too much interference. Even when we are no longer there. Why was such a monumental structure abandoned in the heart of modern civilization? And if a station that was once a symbol of connection has become the hiding place for humanity's deepest secrets, then what are other stations hiding? Most people think it was an economic downturn. A failed project. But beneath the rotting tracks, another world exists. A secret network of underground tunnels, and inside them a nuclear physics laboratory. Imagine trying to catch something you cannot see, cannot touch, but you know it is there because it occupies 85% of the universe. That is dark matter. And scientists are scouring for it right under an abandoned station. They must bury detectors deep underground to avoid cosmic interference. As for the station above, a train accident in 1970 collapsed a bridge on the French side. The Cold War. Exorbitant costs. Two nations decided to close it forever. But there is something that never closed. Nazi gold once passed quietly through underground trains here. We're still frozen in the secret files of Swiss banks. A dead station on the surface. And the birthplace of the most vivid discoveries about the origins of the universe below. The truth is stranger than anything we could imagine. Number 9, Haiku Stairs Cliff Railway, Hawaii. Imagine standing on the edge of the abyss. Who would build this? The short answer, war. But the real answer, the one historians have argued over for 80 years, is how did they not die? Because there was no safety gear. No safety ropes. Only cliffs, 100-pound steel, and an unanswered question. Not mineral mining. Not adventure tourism. World War II. Secret. The US Navy needed a massive radio transmitter station, powerful enough to communicate with submarines off the coast of Tokyo. This amphitheater valley was a perfect natural antenna. But how do you bring materials to the top of a vertical cliff face without being spotted by Japanese aircraft? Nail the tracks to the cliff. Vertically. People still do not know how native workers managed to carry steel weighing hundreds of pounds up these slippery cliffs in stormy conditions without safety gear. When the fog clears, the track emerges like an iron ladder piercing straight into the Pacific sky. Old guards call the sound of the wind blowing through the steel gaps at night the crying of the island. For fear can force humans to push past their own physical limitations. But the question remains, how many more limits do we have left to cross? Number 8. Hejaz Desert Route, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. The first sensation when you stand in the Arabian desert, heat. So intense that the air seems to vibrate. And then you see it. Something that should not be here. In the middle of nothing but sand, a locomotive. Made of iron. Pitch black. Tilted on its side. Half buried. How could a massive railway line disappear in the harshest desert in the world? Sandstorms? Natural disasters? No, this train was destroyed intentionally by a guerrilla war. And it has lain in the exact spot it was blown up for over 100 years. Ground-penetrating radar satellites have detected hundreds of kilometers of track still lying intact beneath 5 meters of deep sand. Frozen in the state of 1917. The Ottoman Empire built this route to shorten pilgrimage time from 40 days to just 5 days. But Lawrence of Arabia led Bedouin tribes to destroy the trains with mines, cutting off reinforcements. No one knows how many treasures of Ottoman gold are still buried with the overturned carriages deep beneath the shifting sand dunes. Today, the Bedouins still use the shade of the rusting wreckage as a resting place for their camel herds. Look closely. A steam locomotive weighing dozens of tons is being swallowed by the sand. But the wonder is, the sand moves. Every storm buries it a little deeper. Every season exposes a different part. The train does not disappear. It becomes a part of the desert. And the desert, think about this, the desert is preserving it like a museum. An unattended museum. No tickets. Only time and sand. Number 7. The Devil's Nose, Ecuador. A vertical cliff face over 800 meters high. Clinging to it are tracks running in intricate zigzags. No barriers. Why did 20th century engineers choose the most dangerous place in the Andes? This was not a mistake. This was the only engineering solution. To climb the stone wall, the train must pull forward into a dead-end spur, then switch tracks and reverse up another spur. Forward. Backward. On the brink of the abyss. This route claimed the lives of more than 2,500 workers. Diseases. Poisonous snakes. Dynamite blasting that collapsed the cliffs. But there was something even more terrifying. The curses of native shamans. They said the mountain constantly shifted to free itself from the steel spikes driven into its flesh. No one knows, not even scientists. But when the fog rolls up from the valley, swallowing the entire cliff, the track looks as if it is floating in a void of nothingness. The workers from Jamaica and Haiti hung from primitive ropes to chip away at the rock. Their singing echoed across the valley before every explosion. Economic connection sometimes comes at the cost of blood. And sometimes, to move forward, we are forced to go backward. Right on the edge of destruction. Number 6. Gyeonggui Line, Demilitarized Zone DMZ. An armored locomotive riddled with bullet holes, sitting silently on a moss-covered bridge. Surrounding it is not a station, but concentric barbed wire fences, watchtowers, bright red signs, mined area. Why is a modern railway line completely sealed off? The tracks beneath the layer of moss and grass have actually been fully restored with the most modern technology. But it is the largest death trap in the world. Over 1 million landmines, densely packed on both sides of the corridor. The highest density on the planet. The Korean War split the country in two at the 38th parallel. The route was cut in half. Despite efforts to connect it, diplomatic freezing has turned it into a ghost corridor. No one knows exactly how many rare animal species, red-crowned cranes, Amur tigers, are taking refuge right inside this deadly railway corridor. Because humans cannot set foot here. A musk deer walks freely on the rusting rail. An image of absolute contrast. The freedom of nature and the political confinement of humans. Old train drivers hold on to a final ticket from Seoul to Pyongyang, hoping their whole lives to drive the train across the border before closing their eyes forever. Iron and steel can be mended quickly with technology. But the wounds in the psychology of a nation take centuries. The most dangerous area in the world, a symbol of hostility, has inadvertently become the wildest nature reserve. The bitterest irony that reality can create. Number 5, Yaniv Station, Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. The blue-gray light of a Ukrainian winter. The rusting train carriages. A collapsed station roof. And the clicking sound of a dosimeter. Rapid, frantic. Why, after decades, does this station still stand exactly where it is? No one has moved it. No one has recycled it. Because the steel rails here have become containers of extreme radiation. Melting them down would release deadly radioactive dust into the European atmosphere once again. The night of April 26, 1986. Trains at Yaniv Station were still operating. Just a few kilometers from reactor number 4. After the explosion, the radioactive cloud dumped straight down onto this area. The station was abandoned immediately during the lightning-fast evacuation of the city of Pripyat. The moss clinging to the wooden ties acts like a sponge, sucking cesium-137 and strontium-90 isotopes deep into its fibrous structure. No one knows what species the microbiota and fungi clinging to these radioactive rails will evolve into over the next 100 years. Large birch trees burst through the steel floors of the carriages, turning the inside of the train cars into miniature forests. The most dangerous thing is not the cliffs, not the landmines, the blue-gray light, the clicking sound of the dosimeter. Why, after decades, does no one dare to move these carriages? Because the steel here has absorbed cesium-137. Melting it will spread radioactive dust across Europe. These rails have become containers for a deadly poison. But look closer. On the moss-covered rails. Moss absorbs radioactive isotopes. And it is still alive. Not just alive, it thrives. Scientists discovered black fungi in Chernobyl are eating radiation, turning the thing that kills life into energy. The most dangerous place in the world is also the place where life finds a way to survive. Number 4, Pekanbaru Death Railway, Sumatra. A tropical rainforest. Suffocating. A pitch-black, rotting wooden railway bridge. suspended over a murky river full of crocodiles. No path leads to it. Why did a railway over 220 kilometers long completely disappear from all modern maps? Not a failed project. The route was completed. Ran exactly one single train. On the day World War II ended. After that, the workers fled. The old forest swallowed it up within a matter of months. The Japanese military forced more than 100,000 Indonesians and 5,000 Allied prisoners of war to build this route. More than 80,000 people died. Dysentery, malaria, brutality. The day the route was completed was also the day Japan surrendered. Dozens of mass graves still lie deep in the heart of the forest. Never found. A giant termite mound has built itself completely around an iron spike, turning a symbol of industry into the center of an insect kingdom. A former British prisoner of war redrew the map of the route with his own blood on a piece of cigarette wrapping paper. There are structures that carry such great resentment that nature actively accelerates the process of decomposition to erase painful memories from the surface of the earth. Number 3. The human bone route Salakard Igarka, Siberia. The Siberian tundra swampland. Frozen. Vast. A strip of steel railway tracks that does not run straight. It twists and rolls, warping into bizarre sinusoidal curves, like the skeleton of a monster writhing in the mud. Why? When first inaugurated, the route was completely straight or solid. The disintegration of what was considered eternal beneath the ground has broken this reinforced steel structure. Climate change is melting the permafrost, the permanently frozen ground that the Russians once believed to be permanent. Soil, as hard as quartz stone in winter, melts into liquid mud when summer comes. But the foundation collapses, the steel snaps. Stalin ordered, build a railway through this frozen hell. He never set foot here. Hundreds of thousands of prisoners did it for him. They called this place the end of the world, and many ended there. More than 100,000 people. Every wooden tie is likened to a human life. Words hastily carved with knives on rotting wooden markers. If I do not return, tell my mother that I died at the end of the world. For seismic microphones, record the sound of the mud and melting ice breathing. A low rumble, cracking. The earth is actively contracting to chew up human iron and steel. The ground is not a static block of stone. It is a kinetic flow. Think about the prisoners who laid down every single tie here. They carved into the wood. If I do not return, tell my mother that I died at the end of the world. They believed they were building something eternal. They were wrong. But perhaps that mistake is the most memorable thing, because it reminds us everything ends. Only the ending never ends. Number 2, Ice Route Lake Baikal, Siberia. For steel tracks. Placed directly on the jade-green ice, transparent as crystal. Beneath, the 2-meter-thick ice layer is a pitch-black abyss. Bottomless. The rumble of thunder echoes from the heart of the lake every time the ice expands and contracts. Why would humans be reckless enough to run trains on the surface of a frozen lake? The year 1904. The Russo-Japanese War. The Trans-Siberian Railway had not completed the section through the mountains around Lake Baikal due to the extremely treacherous terrain. To reinforce weapons in time, engineers made a mad decision: lay the tracks directly on the ice. Several locomotives that were too heavy cracked the ice, plunging down to the bottom of the 1,600-meter deep lake. The exact location of those monolithic iron locomotives lying at the bottom of the Baikal abyss remains the ultimate challenge for diving equipment. Sunlight shines through the transparent ice surface. The wooden ties lie silently as if floating in a void of deep blue cosmic space. The horse-drawn sled drivers on the ice faced cold temperatures of -40 degrees Celsius. And the obsession with the sound of ice explosions bursting like cannon fire right under their feet in the dark of night. When pushed into a corner, humans gamble every safety rule on a thin sheet made of ice water. The boundary between a solid path and a cold grave is only as thick as the span of a hand. Number 1. The Devil's Route, Madeira Mamoré, Amazon. The camera moves extremely slowly along a railway corridor completely submerged beneath the red silt floodwaters of the Amazon River. The tracks no longer rest on the ground. The roots of a giant ancient banyan tree wrap tightly around them, lifting them high into the air, turning the railway into a steel hammock suspended amidst the canopy of the jungle. Why was a railway project that cost enough wealth to build an entire city left abandoned? Early 20th century. The natural rubber boom in the Amazon reached its peak. For every tie laid down, another worker's life was left behind. More than 10,000 people from 40 countries died of malignant malaria, yellow fever, the most potent mosquito strains on the planet, capable of bringing down a healthy person in just 48 hours. The route opened in 1912. That same year, plantation rubber from Asia entered the market at dirt-cheap prices. The entire Madeira Mamoré Railroad became a worthless ruin. American engineers brought microscopes and the most modern scientific theories. They entered the Amazon with the belief they would civilize the jungle. They too were buried in cedarwood coffins along the tracks. When the floodwaters recede in the dry season, an antique locomotive emerges. Wild orchid vines completely cover the surface. The aggressive steam machine turned into a giant flower pot, brilliantly colorful in the heart of the old forest. The Amazon does not accept any alien entity that wishes to impose order. The forest always finds a way to turn human weapons into nutrients to feed its own great ecosystem. Look here. Tree roots have lifted the steel rail right off the ground. We call it the forest reclaiming. But there is a question. Does the forest know it is reclaiming? Or is it just living? And while living, it inadvertently lifts the heaviest thing humans have ever made. 10 roads, or 10 attempts to impose order on a chaotic world. 10 failures. But perhaps they are not failures, because these rusting rails do not tell a story of collapse. They tell the story of a conversation. Quiet and incredibly ruthless, between human ambition and nature's answer. The answer is always, you are not the first, and you will not be the last. When we look at the rails twisted and bent in the Siberian mud, when we see the rusting carriages submerged in an ocean of sand, when we witness the old forest lifting iron and steel off the ground, we are not just seeing the ruins of the past. We are looking at a preview picture of our own future, a future where the world keeps turning, vaster, stranger, and completely independent of human existence. Reality never needs human permission to become strange. Every rusting rail forgotten in the heart of Mother Earth is a proof that our civilization is merely a temporary guest on a planet still full of wonders. And perhaps the most wonderful thing of all is, we still do not know everything. There is still so much waiting. Deep underground, in forests no one dares to enter. At the bottom of pitch-black lakes that see no light. The world is still there. We're still waiting. And the only question that truly matters is not what have we built, but rather, What will we leave behind when it all disappears? And whether the world will even notice we were ever here? Perhaps not. And perhaps that is perfectly fine, because this planet will still go on. Wonderful, mysterious, and forever beyond our understanding.